The Township of Langley is one of the most significant agricultural municipalities in Metro Vancouver, home to nearly half of the region's farms. And it's also one of the fastest growing municipalities in the Greater Vancouver area following Surrey. So protecting that important farmland while accommodating the need for more housing and infrastructure to support the growing population requires a careful balancing act, especially with the arrival of a new Surrey-Langley SkyTrain that will likely bring more people to the area. Well, joining me now to discuss his vision for the future of Langley Township is Mayor Eric Woodward. Mayor Woodward, thanks for your time today.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here.
So how is 2025 for you in your perspective? Any highlights, anything you're proud of?
Yeah, it's great to see a lot of initiatives started by our new council starting to come to fruition in 2025, mostly notably being the widening of 208th Street, which so many have been asking for so many years. That's finally wrapping up here in 2025 and early 2026. 80th Avenue, Fraser Highway, so many road projects are finally getting done, but also major athletic facilities projects such as ice arenas and Smith Athletic Park are nearing completion here going into 2026.
And anything else in addition to the infrastructure projects, anything that you might be looking forward to in 2026?
2026, we're looking forward to the last budget of this council, which will put in place and finalize some of our big plans for a real complete revamp of public safety. Almost 80% of our property tax increases over this term have gone straight into service level increases for fire, police, and bylaw enforcement. And this will be our last budget going into there, finishing that 4-year plan, and now looking to the next term and setting up the next council with a lot of great initiatives.
And can you tell us a little bit more about this initiative to beef up our policing and public safety in the Township of Langley?
Yeah, when we took over in 22, there had been, I think, a lot of lagging, problems around our fire department and our bylaw enforcement department. We put a lot of energy and resources into fire and police and bylaw. It's been a real theme of this term to really catch up with public safety service levels, given all the growth that we've had in the Township of Langley over the last 10 years. There were a lot of issues that were left for this council to deal with, and we've addressed them head on. So going into next council, after that complete catch-up with public safety, we'll be able to focus on infrastructure and other issues.
Now, as we mentioned off the top, the Township of Langley is one of the fastest growing municipalities in Metro Vancouver. So let's talk about an issue that a lot of people in the Lower Mainland might connect with, and that's housing affordability. I understand nearly 250 affordable rental homes are currently being built as part of the BC Builds program in the Township of Langley. Yeah. But is that enough to keep up with the demand and growth and need for affordability in the township?
No, there's a couple of things more we can do. Those rental projects are definitely satisfying the need of making sure that a minimum percentage of all new housing units constructed in the township are more affordable and attainable rental than they would be otherwise, and making sure that there's some supply available for working people and seniors and other folks that may want to stay in the township and couldn't afford it. Overall, with housing affordability, we've really focused on ensuring that the Township of Langley remains where it is, one of the lowest property tax municipalities in the region, which we are. We're in the bottom 2 or 3 of over 20 municipalities, and we're also working very hard to address some long-term inequities around water and sewer charges that we've been separating those bills, and which gives council a lot of flexibility in passing on a lot of savings to people in townhouses and apartments, and giving those in houses the chance to lower their operating costs for their home, not just focusing on property taxes, which we continue to do.
Can you tell us a little bit more about these inequities you're speaking of?
Well, right now, for example, the township is one of the last municipalities to try to catch up with only paying for the water and sewer that you use. And so right now, if you're in an apartment or a townhouse, you're paying the same as a single-family home. And we've taken steps over the last few years to ensure, starting in 26 and mostly in 27, we can start to bring operating and living costs down for those in townhouses and apartments compared to those that have the ability to afford a single-family home. It's been really important to us.
When City Connect returns, we're going to continue our conversation with Mayor Woodward and find out how he's addressing the concerns of farmers, all while trying to meet the growing demand for homes. Welcome back to City Connect. We're sitting down with the Township of Langley's mayor to hear why he thinks merging the city of Langley with the township might be better for everyone. agriculture is also a major industry in the Township of Langley. Recently, a local group of advocates for farmers and rural landowners, they're called the Langley Farmers Institute. Now, they're calling for the township to update its rural plan. They're saying it hasn't had a major update since 1993. How does the township answer these calls?
Well, we've been hearing that for the last year, and I think we've listened to those, especially that really important advocacy group, to ensure that we're keeping up with modernizing not just the other neighborhood plans in the township, which we've done a lot of work on this term, but ensuring that the rural plan and some of our rural policies also keep up with that modernization. And right now we're currently reviewing where that will fit into the long-term plan. I think very open to it. I think there's a lot of reasons to look at that. The rural plan, I think, is quite old, as are some of our other plans. And it's great to hear from voices like the Farmers Institute that they want us to look at that, and I think that that's exactly what we're doing.
How do you balance the need to improve and support agriculture in the Township of Langley while also contributing to housing affordability and building more homes?
Well, the township is so unique in that 75% of our community is reserved and prevented to be developed inside the agricultural land reserve, and 25% of the lands in Willoughby and Brookswood and other areas can be developed. And so we can accommodate and have a lot of new housing in the Willoughby area and Brookswood done right, with infrastructure and amenities. That will also mean that 75% of the Township of Langley will remain largely as you see it today for decades to come. And a lot of us really value the ability to have a rural community, but also have urban amenities such as SkyTrain.
And on the note of the SkyTrain, the Surrey-Langley SkyTrain extension, a major expansion for the Township of Langley, how's that been going?
Well, it's been going fine. As far as I know, it's on schedule and it's getting delivered by the province and the federal government. And it's been a long time coming to connect mostly the city of Langley, but also Langley's, Greater Langley, to the SkyTrain rapid transit network. Really important part of that will be ensuring that TransLink and the provincial government follow through on commitments to ensure that we have bus rapid transit as well, connecting Maple Ridge and Willowbrook, so that people that live in Langley have the ability to get to the SkyTrain network. And there's lots of infrastructure investment coming to ensure that we maximize the value of rapid transit to Langley.
And throughout the past few years, we have been seeing some tensions simmering between the City of Langley and the Township of Langley. You recently said that you feel the City of Langley is not prepared for the SkyTrain extension. Why do you say that?
Well, I raised the concern around the City of Langley's chronic lack of investments in public safety, mostly around policing and fire. When fire department is accounting for a huge quantity of medical calls and other responses, they've chronically underfunded that. They've chronically underfunded by law enforcement and policing as well. So, this is a concern for us when the geography unique to Langley has the City of Langley sort of right in the core of the Township of Langley. A lot of their issues sort of can have the potential to spill out into the township. And we've had some long simmering issues around policing, especially where the Township of Langley is subsidizing policing in the City of Langley to a significant amount, millions per year. And with an inability to correct that, there has been some policy friction for sure. But over the long run, we think that we can work that out. I grew up in Langley City. I love Langley City, and it's an important part of Langley, and I want to see it successful as well, along with the Township of Langley.
And I understand that the City of Langley splintered off from the township back in 1955, due in part to some constituents, rural voters in the township not wanting to pay for street lights in the central city area.
If you can believe it, If you can believe it,
So you've actually made mention multiple times that maybe a merger between the City of Langley and the Township of Langley might benefit the constituents. Why do you say that?
Well, I personally believe that, and I think a number of us that grew up in Langley really see that Langley should reunify, and that having two separate municipalities serving Langley, I think, doesn't serve us as well as one would. But there's disagreement on that, and we respect the opinions of others that we have to bring along or convince, and we'll continue to work on that. For example, though, the City of Langley pays higher property tax than the township. If we were to reunify, residents of Langley City would pay 20% lower property tax. So, having a separate municipality that's small as the city does present a higher level of cost. And it will be, if it remains, which I'm expecting it will be the smallest municipality with the least resources at the end of the line of SkyTrain. And I think that's a big concern that they're not adequately responding to.
Well, I don't want the city and the township to amalgamate. That's one thing. I'm against that. Fix up what we've got already before we start new stuff or new new buildings, new everything.
I like that it's close to the country, but the city amenities are there. You know, it is getting busier. I'm not sort of a big fan of the high-density housing, but that is our future now, it seems, with the way the government is wanting to put up high-density housing. And we have a SkyTrain coming in now, which will add to the benefits, I guess, as far as getting around.
For me, I love the nostalgia. Like, I love that the vibes are kind of like, it's one community, it's one town, everyone knows each other. It's very small business focused, and I really like that. Yeah, I just love it here.
I like the small town feel of Fort Langley.
Yeah.
And hopefully it'll stay kind of like it is now. And we enjoy coming and just walking around the area.
He has some very good ideas. It is what it is, both with the city and the township.
Okay, thank you very much.
But I wish they would interact more with the people before they make decisions. The council and the mayors make decisions. They should talk more to the public rather than just do it on the side.
When City Connect comes back, we're going to dive further into the rising tension between the district mayor and the mayor of the city of Langley. Welcome back to City Connect. We're getting into the weeds with Mayor Woodward about what he thinks is really important for the township and why he thinks those needs aren't aligning with what's happening in Langley City. Tension certainly blew over this year in particular. You were actually quoted saying politicians in the city of Langley need the city of Langley to exist so they can be politicians. They wouldn't last 10 minutes in the township. Could you explain that comment? And do you think that the city of Langley is not being run properly?
I think there's a number of issues in the city of Langley, I think, that do boil over, and especially in regards to public safety. We ideologically disagree with, a lot of what the city of Langley focuses on. I mean, you might see them focus on, bike lanes and social planners. We would be focusing on road infrastructure for hundreds of thousands, 200,000 people, and ensuring that we're adequately policing our community. So there's some ideological differences that I think are healthy and good to debate and discuss. I do believe that if you had a larger, unified Langley, that it would be harder to get elected there, right? And if it's harder to get elected in a larger municipality, typically you may see a higher caliber of politician than you would otherwise. And I think that would be a long-term great benefit if Langley's were to reunify, that I think you would see better leadership.
Now, the mayor of the city of Langley seems to be disagreeing with your comments. He's pointing to the township pulling out of the joint police agreement, which officially ended this year in May. He's saying, or rather he's linking it to a potential move to weaken the city of Langley for a potential takeover by the township. What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting theory, I suppose. I think, it's a typical distraction that, I would try to focus on what's the objective trying to be achieved. And we're trying to achieve better policing for all residents in Greater Langley, not just the township. And, the solution to this disagreement is simply for the city of Langley to fund more police. They're chronically understaffed. They have the highest caseload per officer in the region. They have significant issues with officer burnout, overtime, and other issues. They're not investing in public safety. So the idea that we're doing this in some kind of conspiracy theory, I think is fine. I mean, it's sort of an interesting comeback, I suppose. But I think it distracts from the real issue that that they're not wanting to talk about, which is that they ideologically don't believe in funding public safety, and we do. We think it's a chronic core service that local government needs to provide for, and we see chronic deficiencies in the city of Langley, and unfortunately it does fall in occasions for the the township of Langley to pick up the slack, and it's really not acceptable because the costs are so high that township of Langley, in regards to housing affordability, that they would be paying not only for their own services but subsidizing the services of someone else, and that's the core issue. And I look forward to them responding to the core issue at some point in the future.
And it seems that these political tensions aren't exclusive to the mayor of the city of Langley. I understand that you recently filed a defamation lawsuit against several of your political opponents.
Yes.
This was in connection to an anonymous Facebook group that was critical to your mayorship. As a person in the public eye, as a politician, criticism is part of the job. So why do you think a defamation lawsuit was necessary here?
Well, it was an interesting case because the defamation wasn't against just myself and members of council. It was also against the township staff, the fire department, and other officials. There was a responsibility for the Township of Langley to respond to that. This was way beyond criticism. This was very deep, significant, serious allegations against members of our fire department. So action had to be taken. It was anonymous. We had no idea it was Rich Coleman and Thomas Martini that would be identified as potential defendants. And that was never the intention. I think it's take a rethink now that we know who it is. But in the end, you always face a dilemma that when criticism goes way beyond civic discourse, which of course we have no problem with, but it goes over the line to such a significant degree, I think for what are pretty obvious motives, that if they don't like your governing decisions and maybe everybody else does, they have to smear you in some way, right? So we're going to always come back to what we're trying to achieve for the Township of Langley residents, schools, parks, and roads, and making sure that we keep up with our growth while satisfying housing mandates, right? We want to have a livable community and protect what we have, our rural identity. And, we're not focused on anonymous smear campaigns, but a lot of others are. And when it goes too far, I feel you have an onus to respond.
All right, Mayor. Now, how would you address the concerns of constituents who might say that these political tensions are unnecessary heading into the election next year?
Well, it would depend which one. I mean, I think we're allowed to, and I think have a responsibility to identify that policies that are occurring, in our unique geography of Langley, that are occurring in the city of Langley, are affecting our residents, that we need to take steps to serve our residents. Get value for dollar, making sure that when people are contributing to property tax, that they're getting as much value as possible from that. And we're not expecting to subsidize another municipality. So, I think a lot of it's overblown. How the media loves the conflict, not so much the good story. And I totally appreciate that. And I love it too sometimes, right, to watch the show. But I think when it comes to serious issues, it's a little bit overblown. And I think we agree with Langley City, 80% of the time, and we disagree fundamentally on a couple core issues, and we really want to continue to advocate directly to them to do better in public safety.
2026 is an election year for all the Metro Vancouver municipalities. When City Connect returns, we're going to find out what Mayor Woodward's plans for the upcoming municipal elections are. Welcome back to City Connect. We are wrapping up our conversation with the Township of Langley's Mayor Woodward and what his plans are for the upcoming municipal elections. All right, and I understand in next year's election, there's been talks of you potentially running a slate of candidates in the city of Langley as well. Is that confirmed?
Well, right now the paperwork was registered to have the option, but I haven't spent 5 minutes working on that. I can assure you of that. I think, it's an interesting concept. A number of people have suggested that the path to reunification, may require that. But I think we're looking forward to having an ongoing dialogue with whoever's elected in the city of Langley after the next election, to continue to try to advance our concerns that I think are very real. And I think, if they continue to be discarded and ignored, and I think responding with all this kind of gaslighting and things like that, that we would look for Langley City politicians to be a bit more mature, respond to these concerns, lay out how they're going to deal with SkyTrain when they have so little financial resources to fund public safety. All of these issues, if it comes to presenting Langley City residents with an alternative option, maybe we'll look at that next year.
And if you were to run those candidates in the city of Langley and they were to win, and you were to win in the Township of Langley, would that somewhat guarantee a merger?
Oh, you're multiple steps ahead of me on something like that. I think there are many things to go through in regards to that. It might be interesting to look at the idea of having it placed as a referendum is required, and some other steps that have to occur in advance. I think if you look at municipal maintenance, road programs, especially fire and policing, if Langley City and Langley Township were truly working together, there could be a lot you can achieve that you can't achieve separately, and it would be very, I think, beneficial to have that debate next year if it comes to fruition.
And what have we been hearing from constituents within the Township of Langley? How do they feel about a potential merger?
I think a lot of people in the township feel like I do that, it doesn't make sense to have two Langleys, and that having a greater Langley, we would have a larger voice, we could have a unified vision. A lot of the disagreements around public safety would go away. For something as simple as a firefighter at Hall 1 in Langley City getting burned out, could rotate in and out of a high volume hall, just like they do in Surrey. And there'd be a number of benefits to service delivery, from animal control to where would we put a new police station. Does the Langley City plan to spend $200 million of capital on things the township already have? Makes sense. Some of us think it doesn't. And so I think a more coordinated, unified plan for Greater Langley would make a lot of sense, and I think people in the township are very open to that conversation.
All right, Mayor, now we have unpacked quite a bit, but what would you address as the biggest issue heading into 2026 for the township?
In 2026, we want to really focus on our last budget and finish our 3-4-year plan for really making significant strides in fire, police, and bylaw, and laying the groundwork for continuing a very significant catch-up in road infrastructure, parks, schools, and recreation facilities, so that we're starting to plan for in 26 to 2030 and beyond, ensuring that we have a plan in place for being 250,000 people, which we're going to be by 2050, and making sure that we plan now for ensuring that all of those residents, future and today, have a livable community, and really getting to work over Christmas and into next year to lay out that vision, to hopefully be given a second term to continue to fruition a lot of what we've been working on, assuming that we run again.
All right, Mayor Woodward, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, that's it for City Connect. We look forward to introducing you to more of Metro Vancouver's mayors in the upcoming specials. I'm Nima Rajan. We'll see you next time.